the gold boom towns of Virginia City and Nevada City.
Virginia City was a sister city to Bannack. They're not close by, but they were the only two towns of any size at all in the territory of Montana. And both had gold deposits, and both had vigilanteism and law and order problems and Indian attacks, and just, the things that happen in these towns. And Virginia City had the same kind of boom and bust cycle that Bannack did, and at about the same time lasted a little longer than Bannack. And next door to Virginia City was a sister city to it of much smaller called Nevada City. When Virginia City declined and Nevada City was essentially non-existent, in 1944, a married couple, Charles and Sue Bovey, who had considerable wealth, did a favor for the state of Montana, historians and ghost town lovers everywhere, by deciding to purchase and renovate Virginia City. And so they bought for pennies on the dollar compared to what it would be worth now, old buildings, but they spent a fortune rehabilitating these buildings. And then they did a second thing that was even better, is my opinion. They owned the land of what is now Nevada City, but there was essentially very little on it. They then started buying up terrific buildings all across the state of Montana and trucking them to Nevada City and built a kind of western town. But they are not phony buildings. And so there would be a house from one town, an assay office from another, a school from another. And to purists, there's a problem here. Purists say, we want those buildings in their pristine situation back where they originally were. That's a pipe dream. Because unfortunately, if those buildings sit out there unprotected, there will be people who will knock them down, burn them, take doors home with the sort of random feeling they might use it for something in their house. So they made sure that didn't happen by having all these buildings moved to Nevada City. And now Virginia City is the authentic big time town. Like Banning, it's got two-story banks and fancy saloons and all of that. Nevada City is the poorer cousin, more representative of the real western towns of the West, because it has wood buildings from log cabins to board and batten to rather elegant homes. There's one home there that is just like a two-story small mansion. And the Boveys also collected memorabilia. And so there are hundreds and thousands of pieces of things. One of my favorite, there is a museum there that's just filled with musical instruments of all kinds, and it's just a wonderful place.
To learn about the history of these twin boom towns, we boarded a replica of a stagecoach, and local historian Bill Bromley gave us a guided tour.
All right, now our first stop is going to be right here at this white building on the left side. Whoa. This was the original courthouse here in Virginia City. The courthouse that you see up on Wallace Street was built to be the state capitol. Virginia City had high hopes at one time of becoming the state capitol, but we never did, because after a number of years, there was another gold strike up at what they call Last Chance Gulch. And as the population migrated that way and we came into statehood, most of the people were living there, so it was actually Helena that became the state capital. But this was a territorial capital for a short period of time. Now, this building was also used as a hospital for a short period of time. It's run by the Charity Care Nuns. And the people that live in Virginia City today say that a young person must have died in this building, because at night they can see the ghost of a young woman floating across the windows late at night.
As we moved along, we could see that the building was not a two-story structure at all. It has what is typical of many ghost town buildings, a false front. Residents could send pictures back east saying they were living in a two-story home. We continued our tour.
Now, as we make this turn, if you look out towards the railroad trestles, there are a few old buildings left there, but that was actually Virginia City's Chinatown. The Chinese came into town primarily to do the laundry for the town folks, but they were pretty well discriminated against back then. There was actually a city ordinance stating that the Chinese could not set foot on the streets of Virginia City.
We traveled along the old stage route between Virginia City and Bannock. Along the way, we passed old miners' cabins. It was also along this route that the stage carrying gold was often robbed. Our destination today was to visit the site where a group of miners from Bannock discovered gold along Alder Creek in Alder Gulch.
And being the miners that they were, they took out their gold pans. They got out into the creek, and what they discovered would later become known as the largest placer gold strike in the world. Sounds like a pretty brave statement, doesn't it, for this little gully? We'll tell you a little bit more about that story later on.
Passing old mining tailings, we arrived at the discovery site.
Now we're going to stop here for a few moments because if you look at the monument off to the left, this was the actual spot where gold was discovered. And you may not be able to see or read what it says there, but I'll tell you about it. It says that on May 26th of 1863, gold was discovered on this very spot. And of course, Bill Fairweather and his party, all their names are listed there. It also goes on to tell you that over a course of time, there was over $100 million worth of gold taken out of Alder Creek and Alder Gulch area. If you equate that to today's dollars, gold is closing, I think, at about $1,400. So you can do the math. That means it'd be worth about 7 to 8 billion, billion with a B, dollars today.
We turned around and headed back to Virginia City.
I do want to point out, as one of our last attractions, this brick building on the right. This was the original livery stable here in Virginia City. So when people came to town, they would park their carriages out here. The horses got to go inside to be fed and watered. Today it's the home of the Virginia City Players, and people go in there today. Most of Main Street, there are a few original buildings. A lot of them, some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them have been brought in, but some of them are also original. The town was really deteriorating at one time, but then they got into a restoration effort. But our old Wells Fargo office, as my understanding, was an original building, and the original assayer's office here was an original building.
The three Montana boomtowns, Bannock, Virginia City, and Nevada City, are united in one of the Wild West's greatest outlaw stories and legends. It is the story of the Montana Vigilantes. A story of vigilantes, ordinary citizens who took the law into their own hands during the Civil War. A story that is reenacted every year in Nevada City. The story revolves around Bannock's sheriff, Henry Plummer, and his men.
Red, I understand you wrote a letter to Alec Carter allowing him to evade the Vigilance Committee. Is that correct?
I didn't write a letter, I delivered
Did you
a letter.
carry that letter?
I delivered.
Get him ready, boys. Get him a letter.
As the vigilante reenactors begin rounding up Plummer's posse, ghost town historian Kathy Weiser Alexander tells the infamous story that began nearly 150 years ago with robberies and deaths along that stagecoach route between Bannock and Virginia City.
In 1863, more than 100 men were murdered. That's how bad the lawlessness in the area had become. There were all kinds of rumors about who were the road agents. This was obviously a gang. This was obviously a very organized gang. And somebody who seemed to know what was going on, when the shipments were taking place, when they were leaving, what was going to be in those shipments, because voila, it was always the big ones that seemed to be targeted.
I want you to go inside. You need to write a letter. You make your peace with your maker.
Rumors started to circulate that perhaps those in the know, maybe law enforcement itself, might be behind this. But nothing was done of it at that time. Henry Plummer was also made a United States deputy in August 1863, putting him even more in the know. Could he be behind this group, this gang, which were called the Innocents?
And I'm going to vote first. Walk over with me.
The people of Bannock and Virginia City had finally had enough. And they formed, in December of that year, what was called the Montana Vigilantes. The Montana Vigilantes would not only operate in Bannock and Virginia City, but would operate across the state for several years, taking care of justice in their own way, often brutally.
Captain Williams, it's murder!
In the next several weeks alone, 24 men were hanged by those vigilantes in just 2 weeks. One of the last of those 24 was a man by the name of Red Yeager, Erastus, nicknamed Red Yeager.
Let me go with you. Put me in chains and let me go with you while you catch the rest of them and hang them. I'd like to see them all hanged for putting me in this position.
Step to the back of the stool, Red. You know you've got it coming.
Like other men who are getting ready to face their deaths, he began to beg. He'd give up anything. He'd give up any kind of information. And he pointed the finger at who? None other than Sheriff Henry Plummer.
On June 10, 1864, Henry Plummer shared the fate of his posse at the gallows.
Hi, I'm Bill Ambrose. If you like this video, subscribe so we can bring you more programming from our studio. Thank you for subscribing.